Good morning, second grade. Welcome back for a new week of virtual learning. This is your Wit Wisdom lesson for Monday, April 13th. I hope that you all had a happy Easter this weekend with your families. I know I did. I like to wear my ears today in honor of Easter. We have a lot of learning to do this week, so let's jump right into it. I'm going to share my screen with you, so you will be able to see what I am looking at. All right, as usual, before we start, I'd like you to take a deep breath. Be ready to think. Be ready to share your ideas with your learning partner. Try and stay focused. I know sometimes it's hard. If you need to take a little break, you can always pause the video and stand up and stretch, and then be ready to move on. Try and look forward to your learning for the day. I know that I look forward to learning with you all about the digestive system and all of the amazing things that our bodies can do with food. So what do we need to do our lesson today? You need your quiet space, of course. You need a paper and a pencil. Today you will need your Wit and Wisdom workbook. You're going to need a learning partner, so someone to help you with your computer and someone to discuss your work with you. If you need any of these things, you can pause the video and come back when you are ready to move on. What are you going to learn today? So by the end of our lesson, you will have actively listened to chapters 3 through 5 of the digestive system. So last week we started reading this book here. We said it was what type of book? Turn to your partner and tell them it was a informative book or it was a narrative book. Turn to your partner and tell them. If you said that it was an informative book, you will be correct. It has lots of facts and interesting information about the digestive system. You're going to need your notice and wonder chart handy. By the end of the lesson, I'm going to ask you to come up with 2 more really good thought out questions about what we covered today in the digestive system book. We're continuing to work towards answering this big question. Remember, the essential question is the big question that we talk about throughout the entire module. There's lots of ways that we can answer this question. How does food nourish us? So nourish, remember, is one of our really important vocabulary words. So if you said that nourish means it's the food that we need to live and grow and stay healthy, you would be on target. Let's talk about some other vocabulary words that we learned last week. Last week, we talked about a system is the group of parts that works together. That could be a computer system, that could be a sound system, that can be lots of different systems. Anything that is working together is a system. Digest. So sometimes you might say, oh, I'd like to digest that idea. So I want to put it into my brain and I want to digest what I'm thinking about. Or maybe I put food in my body and my body is going to digest the food. But then sometimes we put those 2 words together and we call it a digestive system. So now it's all of the parts of your body, your mouth, your esophagus, your stomach, your intestines, all the parts that are working together to help your body break down the food and produce some energy so that you can stay strong and healthy and active. So these are 4 words we learned last week that are going to be important throughout the rest of our module. All right, if you haven't grabbed it already, make sure you have your notice and wonder chart handy as we read this first few chapters, or last couple of chapters of our book. You're going to add some things to the notice and wonder chart. So I have a little bit of a video that I want us to watch so we can read the book. So hang on for just a moment. I'm going to show this video. We don't want to watch the whole thing. I have just a little section of it I want us to watch for today.
By adding information to our digestive system graphic organizer. If you don't have this graphic organizer from lesson 1, please pause the video and grab it now. You could also recreate the graphic organizer by drawing 4 squares on your paper and filling in the information. During lesson 1, we began to identify facts and characteristics and completed a picture of the digestive system. Today, we are going to add to our graphic organizer using the information we learned from lesson 2. As a reminder, the digestive system are parts of the body that work together to break down food. Take a moment to study pages 12 and 13. We read this during lesson 2. Think about what we could add to the facts and characteristics side of our graphic organizer. Pause the video now to add one fact or characteristic. There are many facts or characteristics that we learned yesterday based on our reading and that you may have added to the chart. So let's compare notes. I am going to add to the graphic organizer that is displayed, but you may have wrote some different facts. I am sharing so you can see what I added to the graphic organizer. The first fact or characteristic I added was that the digestive system is 30 feet long. Imagine, that would be the length of an adult giraffe with a baby giraffe standing on top of the adult giraffe's head. Okay, so I know that's a little silly to think about, but it does help us visualize the length of the digestive system. I also added that the digestive system is like a long, winding tube. This helps me understand how something so long can fit into such a small space. Throughout this module, we will continue to add to this reference page as you learn more about the digestive system. So continue to keep it handy as you continue learning with future lessons. How does food nourish us? This is the essential question we will be working to answer throughout this module. In lesson 1, we talked about the word nourished and that it means to provide food needed to live, grow, and stay healthy. Our focusing question is, how can food nourish my body? During this lesson, we are going to continue reading the digestive system to build our knowledge around how food can nourish our bodies. In lesson 2, we completed a wonders chart about pages 1 through 25 of the digestive system. Before we continue reading the second half of the text, I want you to think about 2 important things you learned during the previous lesson. In lesson 2, we completed a wonders chart about pages 1 through 25. Before we continue reading the second half of the text, I want to review some things that I learned. I learned our stomachs have gastric juices that are strong enough to dissolve metal. I think this is pretty important. The second thing I learned was the food we eat goes through a lot of different parts of our body, such as our esophagus, small intestine, stomach, and large intestine. I thought both of these were pretty important to helping me understand the power of the digestive system and all the different parts the digestive system has to go through in order to fully realize the process. Now we are going to learn more about the digestive system, including what happens when the digestive system is not functioning properly. We are now going to continue to build our knowledge by reading The Digestive System by Christine Taylor Butler. We started reading this text during lesson 2. Today, we are going to continue by picking up with chapter 3. Remember, as I read, you are going to think about what you notice and remain active listeners. Chapter 3, Digestive Disorders. Have you ever had a stomach ache? It tells you that your digestive system has a problem. Other signs that something is wrong include vomiting and diarrhea. They could be a sign that you have eaten the wrong foods or caught an infection. They can also indicate that you are under stress. Got butterflies? When you're nervous, your stomach shuts down. This allows blood to go to other muscles. It causes a fluttery feeling. Why does my stomach hurt? A stomach ache could be caused by something you ate. Some people are allergic to foods such as wheat or nuts. Other people are lactose intolerant. They cannot digest dairy foods properly. Stomach aches can also be caused by eating a poisonous food, such as some types of mushroom. Lactose intolerance affects as many as 75% of the world's population. In the small intestine, an enzyme called lactase breaks down lactose. Lactose is a sugar in milk. People who are lactose intolerant do not have enough lactase to break down the lactose in large quantities of dairy foods. Food can contain microbes, such as bacteria. Fortunately, most microbes are killed before they can harm you. Some, however, cause food poisoning. Many produce toxins that poison your body. The symptoms include cramps, vomiting, and diarrhea. It may take several days before your body gets all the germs out of your digestive tract. You may need to see a doctor. The purple shapes in this microscope are images of bacteria. They are on a lettuce leaf. Throwing up. You have probably had to throw up at some stage in your life. Vomiting is certainly unpleasant. However, it has a useful purpose. It is often your body's way of getting rid of poisons before they get into your bloodstream. The muscles in your abdomen squeeze your stomach. This forces the stomach to empty its contents back up the esophagus and out through your mouth. Vomiting is a reflex. Once it starts, there's nothing you can do to stop it. Heartburn and ulcers. Usually, a ring of muscle keeps food in the stomach from going back up in your esophagus. Sometimes, a problem keeps it from closing properly. Stomach acid may then get into your esophagus. This causes a burning feeling called heartburn. Some stomach aches are caused by ulcers. Ulcers are wounds in the stomach lining. They allow gastric juice to attack the stomach wall. Ulcers are often caused by a particular bacteria. Doctors use an antibiotic to kill the bacteria. They use antacids to reduce the acid in the gastric juice while the wounds heal. Eating smaller meals and avoiding spicy or fatty foods can help prevent heartburn, and acids can take away the pain. Colon care. Sometimes, what you call a stomach ache is actually pain in your large intestine. If you haven't drunk enough water or eaten the right foods, you may be constipated. If you have an infection in your large intestine, your body will want to get rid of it fast. The result is diarrhea. Sometimes the same symptoms indicate a more serious disease, such as colon cancer. In these cases, a surgeon may remove the unhealthy section of the colon and reconnect the two ends. It's important to drink water when you're thirsty. What's it for? Your appendix is a small tube at the start of your large intestine. Scientists are not sure why it is there. Some think it might help fight infections. However, people who have had their appendix removed have no obvious problems. Sometimes the appendix becomes swollen and inflamed. This condition is called appendicitis. It can cause a sharp pain in the side, fever, and vomiting. People who think they have appendicitis must see a doctor right away. If the appendix is not removed in time, it will burst. This can cause a serious infection that is sometimes fatal. We have finished reading chapter 3.
Okay, I'm going to pause us there for just a moment. That's a lot of information. The lady in this video has us go all the way to the end of the book before adding to our notice and wonder chart. But I would like for you to go ahead and just digest this, like that I used the word digest there, into some smaller pieces so it's easier to remember what you heard. So take just a moment, pause the video, and add a couple of things to your Notice and Wonder chart that you noticed and wondered while we were reading. I added a few to our class list that I am keeping here in my own notebook. So for our class, some of the things that I came up with was I noticed that my stomach can feel bad for many different reasons. And one of the things that I wondered that I added to our list was, where does acid in my stomach come from? Okay, so you might come up with some questions that are similar to that, or maybe something else caught your eye during that chapter. But pause the video and add a few of those things to your list. And when you're ready to move on, just press play and you'll hear the rest of the book.
I would like for you to pause the video and talk with your learning partner about what you notice about Chapter 3, Digestive Disorders. Pause the video to discuss what you have noticed about Chapter 3 now. Put your thumbs up if you notice we read more information about the digestive system. Show me a thumbs up if you have ever experienced any of these digestive disorders. I have too, so it is very interesting to learn why things like upset stomachs happen. I am now going to read Chapter 4, called The Experts, and Chapter 5, Fit for Life, from the digestive system. Remember, as I read, think about what you notice and remain active listeners. Chapter 4, called The Experts. It can be hard to figure out what's causing a digestive problem. Your body will fix problems such as gas or mild infection on its own. More serious problems require advice from a doctor. If your doctor is unsure what is wrong, he or she might send you to a gastroenterologist. That's a doctor who is an expert on the digestive system. And the word gastroenterologist, gastro means stomach and entero means intestine. The first stomach surgeon. Years ago, doctors didn't understand the digestive system. They had no way of seeing inside the body. This started to change in 1822. A fur trapper named Alexis St. Martin accidentally shot himself in the stomach. The wound healed, but a fist-sized hole through his skin and into his stomach remained. Surgeon William Beaumont used the hole to study the digestive system. He would tie string to a piece of food and push the food into the hole. He then pulled it out at various times to figure out the steps in the digestion process. Beaumont also discovered that the stomach acid broke down food on its own. When St. Martin died, his family let the body rot for 4 days before burying it. They wanted to make sure that no one could do any more experiments on him. Today, doctors can look inside your digestive tract without cutting you open. They insert a special tube with a light and a camera at the end into your body. The end of the tube also has a tiny device that can take a sample of your tissue so that the doctor can study it in a lab. The tube that is inserted into the body is called an endoscope. Chapter 5, Fit for Life. If you eat regular...
I'm going to pause us there. I would like for you to think about some of the things that we learned about on those last couple of pages about your stomach, and add those things to your Notice and Wonder chart. You can pause the video and press play when you are ready to move on.
You will get all the vitamins and minerals you need. If a meal is late, your stomach might growl when it's contracting and releasing juices ready for your food. How do you keep your digestive tract in top shape? Eat well, drink water when you are thirsty, and get regular exercise. If you do these things, the good things will come into your system and the unwanted waste will move out quickly. You'll feel well. You'll have the energy you need. Put in only the best. Fiber helps keep your intestines healthy. Fiber is the material in plant cells that helps them hold their shape. Fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, such as cereals and breads, are full of fiber. Your body doesn't absorb fiber. Instead, it uses the fiber to help push material through the intestines quickly. Water is also important for keeping things moving in your intestines. It can help you avoid hard feces, which can lead to constipation. Water also helps the body absorb vitamins and minerals. Too much fat in your food can slow your digestion. Digestion times. It takes different amounts of time for the stomach to digest different types of foods. Eating foods in order of its digestion can help the digestive process. That way, the slowly digested foods will not hold up the other foods. Take a moment to study the chart on page 41. Keep on track. Exercise is important for keeping your digestive tract on track. Moving your body helps food move through your intestines. Don't do vigorous exercise right after eating, though. Wait a half an hour after a snack or up to 3 hours after a heavy meal. If you look after your digestive tract, it will look after you. Put healthful foods in, and your body will convert it into a healthy body and plenty of energy. Vigorous exercise after a meal can cause muscle weakness. However, gentle walking can help digestion. True statistics. Average amount of food a person eats per day is about 1,100 pounds. Amount of time it takes to chew a mouthful of food, about 5 to 30 seconds. Length of an adult esophagus, about 10 to 14 inches. Average amount of hydrochloric acid produced in a person's stomach each day, about 4 pints. Amount of time food usually stays in the colon, 8 hours to 2 days. Number of species of bacteria in a person's colon, more than 400. We have now finished chapters 4 and chapters 5. I would like you to pause the video and talk with your learning partner about what you noticed about chapter 4, called The Experts, and chapter 5, Fit for Life. Pause the video to discuss what you have noticed now.
Okay, you should have already noticed and wondered about those other 2 chapters. So I really just need you to notice and wonder for chapter 5. I will give you a couple of examples of things that I noticed and wondered that I added to our class list during that last chapter. So I noticed that it takes meat the longest time to digest. So then my wonder kind of went with that, and I said, why does it take meat so long to digest? So that's something I might want to see if I can find the answer to that question as we move on throughout our module. So pause the video and add the last chapter to your notice and wonder chart.
Give a thumbs up if you notice that it is important to drink water when thirsty. Did you also notice that when we vomit, it is good for us because it gets poisons out of our body? I know you have noticed other information as well, so be certain to keep them in mind as we continue. Now that we have read chapters 3 through 5, you will prepare to write some questions you had while I was reading the text. To begin, create the graphic organizer that you see here on the screen. You can create this on a piece of paper or ask your learning helper to print this worksheet listed under the student downloads for this lesson. You can also use the Wonder Chart from Lesson 2 and add to what you have already written. Please pause the video until you have copied this on a sheet of paper or printed a copy or grabbed what we've done from Lesson 2 to continue what we're going to do now during Lesson 3. Now that you have your graphic organizer, write 2 questions you have or 2 things you are wondering based on the portion of the text I have just read. If you need to return to chapters 3 through 5, you may go back to that portion of the lesson yourself or ask a learning partner to help you rewind to that section of this lesson. Pause or replay the video now to complete this task. After you have shared your questions with your learning partner, add them to the chart and then unpause the video. I wish I was able to hear your questions, but I would like to share my questions with you to see if any of yours were similar or different. Right now, only my questions from Lesson 2, the first 2 chapters, are displayed. In just a moment, I am going to show you what questions I added to my chart. As I show you my questions, think about if any of my questions are like the ones you wrote down. Remember, there is no right or wrong question. I simply want to share with you so you can get another idea of some additional questions that we could ask. The questions I asked were, why does food have microbes? How does my stomach know when to vomit? Does heartburn hurt my esophagus? How did a man live with a hole in his stomach? Why does it take milk and cheese longer to digest than fruits and vegetables? Take a moment to review all the questions on the screen. Can any of these questions begin to be answered? If so, we're going to put a check in this column. If they can be answered completely, meaning we've got enough information from the portions of the text we read, and we can fully answer the question, we can put a check mark in this column next to the question under complete answers. Take a moment to think about if any of these questions can be answered or if they are still in progress. Place a check mark. And unpause the video when you're ready to continue.
So because we did our questions in a Notice and Wonder chart format, yours is going to look a little bit different maybe than what she has on the screen here. So I would like for you all to just, if you have a question in your chart that you have already started to answer, I'll show you on mine, then I would just put a check mark next to it on your own chart. So here's our class chart, okay? And we started to be able to answer some of the questions. So if I was able to start answering, why does it take fat foods longer to digest, and I start to know some of those things, I'm just going to put a little check mark next to my question in my Notice and Wonder chart. Okay, so that will help you keep track of your running list of what things do we still need to investigate further.
Based on what we have read so far in the column, Answers in Progress, there are several questions I had that we have a little information about, but I don't feel quite confident yet that I can completely answer the question based on what I've read so far. In the Complete Answers column, which is this column here, there are 3 questions that I feel like I have enough information and my question has been answered fully. Why are there bacteria in your stomach? I found that answer on page 10. I learned that bacteria is in your system to change part of waste into gas. What is chyme? I learned about this on page 17. On page 17, it tells me that once it mixes with gastric juice, it's called chyme. So once food mixes together in our stomach and then mixes with the gastric juice, I now know that that's what chyme is. The last question that I thought was answered well, based on what I've read so far. Why does it take so long for food to be digested? On pages 24 and 25, I learned that food may take 20 to 30 hours to digest completely. This is because food must make a long journey. It must travel through various parts of the digestive system before it empties out as feces and is flushed away. Having to travel 30 feet through the digestive system is why the process of digestion takes so long. As we continue to explore additional text in this module, we will continue to be on the lookout for questions that either require additional information or can be answered. Today, we answered a few questions and asked some more about the digestive system. In the next part of this lesson, part 2, we'll talk about how shared research works.
Okay. All right. So we are ready to move on. Let's think back on some of the things that we learned today. So were you able to focus while we listened to chapters 3 through 5 of the digestive system? I bet that you were, even if you had to take a short break. Were you able to add things to your notice and wonder chart? I bet that you were able to do that. Show me a thumbs up. I was able to add to our class chart. And what are 2 new questions that you wrote about the digestive system? So I came up with some questions for our class chart. There were some examples in the video. If you have not done 2 questions yet, one of those questions you're going to need to put in your exit ticket so I can see some of the things that you all are wondering about as we are doing our lessons. It helps me kind of get an idea of where your thinking is at so I know what to talk about in future lessons. So make sure you fill in those questions so I will have an idea of what we need to be working on going forward. The last step today is fluency. So we've been practicing the same passage. Goodness, I'm having a brain slow down there for a second. So some of the passages that you've been reading, there's 2 different choices. You can read one or either passage or both of them. Read them 3 to 5 times to your partner. Make sure that you're focusing on phrasing. Go to expression, so you're making your voice go louder and shorter, quieter, and faster and slower to get across the mood. Make sure you're adjusting your volume level. You want to not talk too quiet so that no one can hear what you're saying, but you want to speak loud enough that everyone is able to understand what you are reading. You're not reading too fast or you're not reading too slowly. Here is the passage in case you don't have it in your workbook. You can pause the video and read it out loud to your partner. The very last part I wanted to show you, I had asked you guys to submit some photos of you learning, and here is what I have so far for our video. Take a few seconds and look at it. If you haven't sent me a picture of you with a pet or with you in learning in your house that we can add to our class video, please have your parents send me a picture or your teacher a picture and I will add it to our ever-growing movie. Here you go. Enjoy this. I love seeing all of your smiling faces and seeing what you're doing at home.
Fall is here, hear the yell, back to school, ring the bell, brand new shoes, walking blues, climb the fence, books and pens. I can tell that we are gonna be friends. Yes, I can tell that we are gonna be friends. Walk with me, Susie Lee, through the park and by the tree. We can rest upon the ground and look at all the bugs we found. Safely walk to school without a sound.
All right. So I've added the pictures that I've gotten so far into that. So if you, oh no, I'm restarting again. Sorry, Mrs. Kippis is not that great with technology. Anyways, so send me pictures of you at home so I can add it to our class video, and I will see you all tomorrow. Have a good afternoon.